All right, so in a little while, what you're going to be doing alongside me in order to learn something about layer masks is typing your name, just like you can see here. So just typing your name, finding an image of an animal that maybe represents you, and we're going to be placing that image of the animal onto your name. And in order to do that, we're going to be using something called layer masks. Before we actually do this, you can just sit back and I'll explain a little bit about layer masks and what they are and how they're useful. So typically, if you've done selections before, so let's say I want this strawberry, this front strawberry on that plate, you would have pulled out a selection tool, which we'll still use. Use my magnetic lasso, I could use quick select, there's a variety of tools that might make this happen, and I might do a little bit of an imperfect job here, which is fine. Okay, so you would have selected it, maybe cleaned it up a bit, you would have copied it, so Control C, I just copied, and I just pasted it on there. So that would be a typical selection. Now the problem with this method of selections is I can't actually get some of the pixels that I've missed back. I've missed probably some seeds here or a little bit of the strawberry here. So if I don't do it perfectly the first time, I've actually destroyed part of that strawberry and I can never get it back. So what we're going to look at is another way to do selections without actually destroying the image or destroying the layer. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So what you do is you select what you want the exact same way. I just selected the strawberry, but instead of copying that, we're going to add something called a layer mask. So if I go down here, this little image kind of looks like a camera of some nature, but it's called Add a Mask. If I click on that, you're going to instantly see that selection is the only thing that appears. However, I haven't actually destroyed the original picture, and I'll show you that in a second here. So after I click that button for the layer mask, I actually added another black and white image here. And what that actually did is it revealed, so what the white is the part of the selection that's actually still remaining, whereas the black is the part of the selection that's gone. So to give you an idea of what layer masks do, theoretically, if I pulled out a white brush and I started painting anywhere where it was black on here, it should reveal part of that picture again. Okay, so I'm using white with my brush, and what you can see actually on the icon here on the layer mask is that has gone white. Okay, so it's revealing part of the picture. So the nice thing about that is it's non-destructive with layer masks. So you can add a layer mask and you can actually go back and touch it up. So if I wanted to add something, I could take my brush and I could just, as long as I'm using white, I could add that. Or if I wanted to erase something, I could just switch this up, now use a black brush, and I could select it that way. So you're still going to do the initial selection in a similar way, but instead of just copying that and pasting that, what I would suggest doing is adding a layer mask, and now we can just copy that layer. So I'm still going to press Control C, and I can go back to the plate, press Control V, but you're noticing I still have that original image with a layer mask imposed on there, which is kind of cool. So I'm actually not destructing what's happening here. So if I clicked on the layer mask itself and pulled out a white brush, I could, again, theoretically, if I have this brush tool here, I could theoretically, there we go, add to that image. So it's a non-destructive way of doing selections. Now the reason I'm saying that is we're going to use something similar in what you're going to do here shortly. So you might want to pause this video in a second. What I'd like you to do is go to Google, find an image of some sort of animal that represents you. I don't care if it's a lion, tiger, duck, whatever it happens to be. So go ahead and find that animal and get it into your student drive. We're going to practice here in just 1 second. Okay. So if you found your animal, you've saved it into your H drive, we are going to start making something similar to this using layer masks. It'll just give you a really quick idea of how you can add layer masks onto anything and how they're utilized. So can you go up to, so practice this with me, go up to File, New, and let's just make a, doesn't really matter, but I'm going to make a 10-inch, let's just practice anyways, 10-inch by 4-inch document. Okay, so there it is. Next, if you go to the typing tool, you just type your name. I would suggest before even typing your name, find the font. I think you'll have it anyways. The font called Impact. Impact's a really nice thick font. It's hard to see the picture through it if you use a thin font. So choose Impact. Just click your mouse and type your name. Okay, I can't see my name right now because the font color is white, so I could theoretically highlight it and choose whatever color I want to. That won't matter later on anyways. And you can also, if you'd like to, resize your name. If you use the move tool, you can resize it as well. But the big idea here is you're typing your name in a really impactful font. So I'm just using actually the impact font itself and just laying it out. Okay? Perfect. Next, let's lay the animal that you'd like to be or have on your name on top. So I'm just going to go straight into my H drive here. I've got lots of different pictures. I've got one here called lion, and I'm just going to drag that onto my document. Okay, if it doesn't work, you probably have to hit the check mark. So I'm going to hit the check mark, and I'm just going to try again. Drag it onto my document, and there we go. Okay, lay out your animal so you can change the size of it so it covers at least your entire name. Okay, we'll see how this works here shortly. So there we go. Okay, so now the goal of what we'd like to do here is, if you think about layer masks, we would like the lion to have a layer mask, but in the shape of your name, Dan or Tiffany or whatever it happens to be. So the way that we're going to do that is if you go down to the layer with your name on it, which you might have to hit the check mark after you do some resizing. If you go to the layer with your name on it, and actually hold down the control. So here's my layer with my name on it, Dan. Here's a fancy feature. If you hold down the control button on your keyboard and you click on the actual T here, you're going to get this fancy little outline of your name. So that's a fancy trick for if you hold down control and you go to any layer and click on it, it will instantly have that as a selection. So we've got Dan as kind of an outline here. But what we want to do is impose that as a layer mask on the lion itself. So if we've got that as your selection. If you go up to the lion layer or your tiger or bear or duck or whatever happens to be, mosquito, if you go up to that layer, so you've got your name selected, you go up to that layer with the animal on it and now click on this layer mask, you'll actually be, boom, sort of done. Okay? The next thing that you can do to make this kind of look cool, to understand layer masks, is if you click on that layer mask of your name, so you can see your name here in white. If you want to add a little bit, so you can see my original one here has some shadow as well as all the rocks. So what you can do in that scenario is you can actually go to that layer mask, and maybe if you want to reveal some more of that picture, have a white brush. I'm going to make it a soft brush in this case. So there we go. And if I paint on the bottom part of this image, it's going to reveal a little bit of the lion on the underside of my name. So that's a really quick layer mask. And for those who really are interested in other things, as an aside, you can see the shadow there by my name. All I did is on that layer mask, I added something called an effect. So if I go to the effects panel here, I can go to blending options. This is just a ton of stuff you can do, but I can add a drop shadow, change the distance, change the angle. You can kind of see there's now a shadow on my name. So that's a really, really brief introduction to the idea of layer masks and how you can impose a selection from one layer onto a layer mask of another image. So hopefully that helped you out. Hopefully you can have your name with an animal superimposed onto it, and that's it.